Okay, looks like this is working this time. Second try. My name is Andrea Hyland. I'm the founder of Heal My Voice. And right now, during this holiday season, I am reposting 44 radio shows on transforming grief. Originally, the shows aired in 2010 over the holidays, and they are timely or timeless, let's put it that way. Whatever. The information is just as valuable now as it was when we first recorded them. And there were 27 guests. And so for 44 days, I am reposting those shows and doing a little bit of a summary on Facebook Live. Today, the show that I'm going to post is about remembering. And it was originally a show that I hosted on Thanksgiving evening. And my intention that night was to really be a voice in the dark for anyone who was experiencing loss and grief, and that this might be their first Thanksgiving or something had happened. So for instance, one of the posts that came through that night was a woman who had a boyfriend who had just broken up with her, and she was feeling really lost. So that was the intention of the show. So I thought I would share a few tidbits of the power of remembering. Interestingly enough, I woke up this morning realizing that today would have been the 26th wedding anniversary with my husband, who died 11 years ago. And I could feel a heaviness in my heart. So I sat with a cup of coffee and just let myself feel the feelings of heaviness and sadness. And what happens when we're grieving or we feel that sadness, it's really common to get a shallow breath, like to kind of hold your breath. And if you can just sit and take some deep breaths and just let that feeling be there. So I was asking, what is the sadness connected with today? And my husband and I got married the day after Thanksgiving. And so in the United States, it's the fourth Thursday of November when we have Thanksgiving. So that day is always changing. And I realized that when the anniversary is right next to Thanksgiving, it feels more palpable. It's like a body memory of, oh, I'm getting married. And so I let myself remember that day. I just sat there and I remembered that we had the ceremony at my sister-in-law's house, and I remembered who was present. And then I had two memories come up that at the time didn't necessarily feel funny, but now it's hysterical to me. So I found myself laughing, and I'll just share those. One was, this was my second marriage, and for some reason, my mother started talking with the guests after we were married, and saying to them, well, we hope she gets it right this time, because I had divorced my first husband. And at the time, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe my mother is saying this. Now it's funny to me. We hope she gets it right this time. So how do you think my mother feels about divorce and marriage? And then the other one was my husband had a previous relationship where he was helping to raise the woman's daughter, and so we had invited them to the wedding. They were friends of my husband that they'd broken up a long time ago. But at one point, when we were asking people to share things, she stood up and started talking about how much she and my husband still loved each other, how things didn't work out. It was just like, huh? What? Like, this is not their wedding. This is my wedding with him. So sometimes that sad remembrance can actually free you to feel a wide variety of emotions. And that's what I was feeling this morning. Another thing I wanted to share is, really remembering is an opportunity to just stop everything, pause, reflect, feel. Just let yourself be in this space of remembering. So there was a Thanksgiving that happened right after my first husband and I had separated, and our daughters were 2 years old and 3 years old. And that first Thanksgiving after we separated, my husband took our daughters to his family for Thanksgiving, and so I went to my family. Well, I was at a point where it was like, I was in a lot of pain. We were just separated. People were confused as to why we were separated. Divorce was not something that happened in my family, so there was a lot of confusion and probably judgment about that. It was really painful. So I went to my family because my sister and her family were in town and I didn't get to see them very often. But then I drove 2 hours back to my house, and I remember just sobbing. And the next day I woke up with the flu, and it was really a hard day. But as I'm remembering that, one of the things that came out of that year was I started to let myself see Thanksgiving as a different experience. Like, what could it be? It was, for years, it had been going to my family, going to my husband's family. What was it that I could create anew? So out of that grieving, out of that sense of loss and sadness, I changed. And so the change was that the next year, for a week before Thanksgiving, I was walking around in my life asking people at work, asking people at different activities, so what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And when there was someone who said, well, my family's out of town, I'm not really going to do anything this year, I would invite them over. And that first year we had 10 people at our table. My daughters were there. And I decided to have it be like a cultural experience. So I chose a country to learn about. We had some foods that we added in from the country. There was music, there was a game, there was a craft activity. I began to create Thanksgiving in a new way. And so remembering can actually connect you with a desire to make different choices in your life, to make change in your life. And I also want to acknowledge that during this holiday season, that there may be things that come up. I mean, one thing that came up for me was after my husband died, or after I got a divorce from my first husband, there was this, I was no longer part of a couple. And there was some grieving, even when I would be excited to go someplace. There would be a remembrance of something else is missing here, something that was greater than the person. It was actually a loss of identity. And so, I really encourage you to be gentle with yourself during this season. If you have a memory, just take some time to pause and feel it and think about it. And maybe, just like I did today, you'll get in touch with some of the humorous parts of that day. And I want to make a distinction. I did not push away the sadness. What I did was I created a space to feel the grief first, to feel the sadness first. And in my mind, I walked through the day that was connected to the sadness. And then I was able to get in touch with all of the feelings of that day. The sadness, the loss brought me into joy and remembering. And wow, even in this moment, I was just thinking about one of the food dishes that someone made, and it's like I can just taste it on my mouth right now. I think it was a kugel that she made. So let yourself feel and remember today. There's a power in remembering, and it will bring you into all of the feelings, not just the sadness, but a wide range of feelings that sadness is a part of. But there's also joy and happiness. All right, everyone. So enjoy the holiday. I will be back tomorrow with day 5 of 44 days of transforming grief. Bye-bye now.